Y'all, welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we're going to be doing a 100-hour service on this 2019 75 horse Mercury 4-stroke. Should be the same, close to the same for a 90 horse and a 115. They all use this 2.1 liter block. Just tuned a little differently to make the different horsepowers, but the oil change and the gear oil should all be about the same. But we will be changing the oil, changing the fuel filter. We're going to put new gear lube in the bottom, in the lower unit, and go through all the other checks that lists in the manual you do every 100 hours. So thanks for tuning in today. Let's get to doing some maintenance. Alright y'all, we're going to start on the oil change here. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and pop the cap off where you fill it at. I like to pull the dipstick out as well, just so it doesn't act like there's a suction and it gives room for the air to push all the oil out. This right here is where you drain the engine oil at. This little kit I bought, which I'll show you in a minute, has a came with this little drain hose, which is nice. You can put it right into your drain pan, and it's a 5/8 open-end wrench. Says you crack this open, and the manual says to turn out 2.5 turns, but no more. Because if you go too far, I guess you could risk coming out of the threads. About 2.5 right there, starting to drain the oil right now. This hose managed to where it'll just stay on top of my drain pan. Alright, here's the fuel filter. You see where the oil fill and the oil filter right there is directly below that, and we're gonna change this thing out. Push in a little bit on this and get a little tension on it, and you can push down on this red piece right there, and when you push in, it should release. There we go, pops right off. You're gonna do the same on both sides and put the brand new filter in place, but make sure you keep in mind. Alright y'all, while the engine oil is still draining, we got the fuel filter done. Next thing's up. Manual says for 100 hours, if you use it in salt water, which I do, you need to pull the spark plugs and check their condition and put some anti-seize on them. I just had this in the shop last month, so I know they did all this when they checked it before it went out of warranty, but I'm going to at least go ahead and pull this top one and see what it looks like. Alright, sorry about that. Now that I found my socket wrench, it's going to be a 5/8, the smaller for the spark plug socket, not the bigger one. Pull the spark plug wire off. I definitely like to do it one at a time if you're going to do them all, so that you don't mix the wires up. Get it broke loose, and I'll just finish it by hand. If I see anything out of whack on this thing, I definitely will pull the rest, but the gap looks good. I don't see anything, any like oil residue or anything built up on it. It looks pretty clean. I mean, you can tell it's been used. It's got right at 100 hours on it. The manual says we need to put a little anti-seize on the thread before we put it back in. The last thing you want is to get one of these broke off in the block. That would be no fun. Just put a little bit just on the threads. Get it started in there. I like to spin them in by hand until it starts getting tight, and then just give it like another quarter turn.
I bet there's a torque spec. If there is one in the manual, I'll be sure to post it at the bottom of the page. Snug. Alright y'all, as you can see, oil's pretty much done draining. It's just down to a drip now. So I'm going to have to go ahead and tighten it by hand as far as I can. Once it stops dripping, I'm going to pull this hose out of the way. Let my wrench get in here a little easier. Alright, go ahead and tighten it down. The manual said, if you got your torque wrench handy, 133 inch-pounds. I don't have mine handy, so I'm just going to go till she feels snug. Now that that's drained out, I'm going to go ahead and start working on the oil filter. Let me pan up and make sure you can see that. Okay, this oil filter comes with this little plug tucked in this little hole right there. That's what you pull out, so you can put that same drain hose you used on the bottom, and that'll let you drain whatever little oil stayed in that filter into that little tray and keep it from getting into your cowl. Just in case, I'm going to go ahead and stick my rag underneath here in case anything else wants to come out. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick the hose on there. I have to pause the video a minute. I think the one thing I forgot to grab was my oil filter wrench. That thing's on there pretty snug, so I'll be right back with the filter wrench. Alright, couldn't find the oil filter wrench right off the bat, so got me just a little pair of channel locks. As soon as we can get it spinning, I'm sure it'll start coming by hand. We're trashing this old one anyway, so we're not trying to save anything. That's good. Draining the bottom part first. There was almost no oil left in there to even make a mess in that pan. But just enough that we can get in here, take a little bit of this used oil, lubricate our O-ring, spin this new one on. Now that I'm done making a mess, I can pull this hose out of the way, put our plug back in. I'll be able to grab this thing with my cloth and get a nice good turn on it once it gets sealed up. Once it gets snugged, I like to go at least about a half another turn. Things nice and snug now. Alright, now that we got all the old oil out, old filter off, new filter on, I got this dipstick just up here out of the way. Put it back in now that we got the filter change. I'm going to go ahead and scoot the camera around so we can start filling it up. Alright, now everything's closed up, ready to fill her. Like I said, your cap is up here on the rear of the engine. My kit I got, I'll show you a picture of in a second, came with 5 liters of this Mercury 4-stroke 10W30. But the book calls for 5.2 liters or 5.5 quarts to get this 75 horse Mercury in the range we're supposed to be. So I went to the marina where I got the boat and pick up this extra quart, and I think I'm going to have to top it off a little bit. I'm going to put the 5 liters that came in the kit in first. I'm not going to bore you with all that. I might put a little time lapse in for it. Alright y'all, as you can see, put 5 liters right there in the fill cap. I found it was easier to just pour it straight out of the bottle and try to use the funnel. That's why you saw me wrap the shirt around. So in case I did splash any out, it wasn't getting all over the motor and stuff, but it was real easy to just pour it in straight from the bottle, so you didn't have to wait for that funnel to drain out every time. It kind of time consuming doing it that way. I went ahead and double checked my filter, made sure it was tight up, put a wrench on that one more time, made sure my oil fill was good, and now we got to start it and run it. I'm gonna run it for about a minute and make sure that oil filter gets full, and then we got to let it sit. I think the manual said it's best to sit for an hour, but it said minimum of 5 minutes. I'll probably check it at 5 minutes and then check it again in an hour before I add any. And hopefully I'll be able to give you guys a good estimate on how much it used. If it was just the 5 liters, put me in the okay zone, or if I had to add a little more out of that extra quart I bought. Y'all, just to clarify, I did cycle that key a few times since I changed out the fuel filter. I didn't know if there might be any air in the lines. I was trying to make sure that we had plenty of fuel pressure, so hopefully it kicks right off. I'd like to see more water flow out of that telltale. But this wouldn't be the first motor I've had. It didn't really spit that well on the hose, but it does just fine in the water. But since it's not peeing real good, I'm probably going to stop it right there so we don't worry about overheating the motor. Alright y'all, well, we're letting that oil settle back down to the sump, and so we can take a good reading. The next thing we got to do is take this prop off so we can check the drain and refill the gear lube and check it for water and make sure it's not milky or anything. So I don't know if you've all done this before. You got these 2 little tabs, you got to bend those down, and that'll allow this nut to spin, and we're going to back that off. And as far as I know, this prop may have never been off for the 3 years it's been alive. So hopefully it comes right off. I don't have to fight it. If I'm going to do a little time lapse of me pulling this prop. It says, the manual says to put a piece of wood in here. Something soft, so whenever you turn, it'll hold the prop. And it also says to do it in neutral. So this is my first time taking this one off. We'll see how she goes. Alright, as you can see, the prop came off pretty easy. Supposed to inspect this shaft. Still got a good coating of grease on it, which we're going to be adding more. I'll show you what it says to use in the manual. So this Mercury Marine 24C marine grease, that's what we're supposed to make sure stays on the splines of that shaft so we don't have to worry about that prop corroding and seizing up on us. And then we got to drain the gear oil out, which is that little plug there on the bottom. It's kind of hard to see. There it is. We're going to pull that plug, and then I'm going to, before I crack the vent on the top, then it'll start flowing real good. That way I can see if any water seeps out, or kind of get a visual of what the oil looks like. And then as long as I know there's no water in it or anything, we know all the seals are good, I'm going to go ahead and crack the vent at the top, which is right up here on the side. And once you take that out, that oil flows out pretty good, and let it drain for a minute, and then we'll work on refilling it. Alright guys, I'm still draining the lower unit, but I thought I'd pull this dipstick and check it. The light's getting a little bad out here now, so it's kind of hard, but if you can see, with that 5 liters it came with, it put me right at the bottom of that add mark. I'm not going to add any today. I'll probably check back tomorrow and see where the line's at, if that oil settled all the way down the sump. I don't know how long it's going to take, so I don't want to overfill it, but I'm probably going to put some more in tomorrow. I'll keep you posted on what I have to add. Alright y'all, it's almost done draining. Thought it was done, and it has second wind, so I'm letting it go a little longer. I wanted to show you guys, if you don't have one of these for filling up the lower unit, I think you can get them for less than $10. It's a little pump. This goes all the way down to the bottom of the quart jug, so you can suck it all out of there. Screw that on the lid, and then you, once that's done draining, I will screw this into the bottom hole. It's got the same threads as the drain plug, and I can use this to pump the oil in. And you want it to go in all the way till it starts coming out where the vent is, up there where I showed you earlier. The first time I ever tried doing it, my grandpa showed me, and I guess back in the day they just took the 32-ounce bottles, a little tip on them, and forced it in there till it came out, but it always made a huge mess. I felt like I wasted more than I really put in there. So doing it with this saves you a lot on buying the oil, and you know that you worked out all the air pockets and stuff. So I might put it on time lapse in a second as soon as I put this in, and we'll show you filling it up. Alright y'all, as you saw, I got that filled up. I don't know if you can see, it took quite a few pumps to get that thing all the way filled up. But I was watching right here, as soon as I saw the fluid start coming out, I knew it was full, so I stopped, put the vent back in. That'll keep it from draining out so fast. That'll give you time to get your fitting off and get the plug started. You're going to lose a little bit, so after I put this vent back in, I usually try to push like another couple times, put a little extra up in there. So if you lose a little getting the plug in, you'll still be all the way up to the vent. But next I'm just going to do a little time lapse, put the propeller back on. It's starting to get dark, so I'm probably going to call it a night. There's a few more things I want to do for the 100-hour check, so we'll probably start it back up tomorrow. Alright y'all, we're back out for day 2 of my 100-hour maintenance video I'm shooting. Just going over a couple things I didn't quite get finished yesterday before it got too dark. One thing I want to mention, when I had the prop off, I should have showed you guys this, but one thing it says you're supposed to inspect is this propeller bore sleeve. And I'll leave it up there for a second so you guys can read it, but it's just a little plastic piece that's in there just behind the prop. And it says you need to inspect it, make sure that it's not cracked or worn. And right there it says retention tabs are not broken. And I feel like my tabs might have been broken because I was trying to move it out of the way to get to that drain plug, and it almost just came out on its own. So I will be picking up a new one of those and replacing that here shortly. A couple of the other things that were on the 100-hour checklist I didn't get to yet was checking these anodes, which we got one on either side. The lower unit, and you can tell they've been to some saltwater use, and definitely keep a close eye on them. I'll check them every time I rinse the motor and stuff. There's a third one up underneath, up under here. There's a little bit of a corrosion film on them, but they're not starting to get real pitted or nothing, or where they feel like they're about to, you know, completely give up. So I'll probably give them at least another year. Like I said, keep an eye on them. If they start getting drastically worse, I'll change them out. Alright, the last thing, I mean, reading through all these other things that we're supposed to check on this service that really apply to this motor. I mean, we need to check for loose hose clamps or rubber boots. Check that, make sure the air intake assembly, all that kind of stuff I know I'm pretty confident with because I just had this thing in for service about a month ago, right before my 3-year warranty went up, and they looked over all that. So I'm not really concerned about too much in terms of that, but you know, I'll just go through and look. Got your hose clamps here, and make sure nothing looks out of place. I mean, it should be pretty obvious if you got something that's cracked or not sitting on a boot correctly or whatever. So the very last thing I want to go over on this service is checking this engine oil. It's actually the next day, so I let it go all night. And I even tilted the motor up all day, so if anything residual was up here at the top part, it would drain down the bottom sump. And this is after the 5 liters that came in the kit. It may be hard to make out on the camera, but I can tell you it's only about a 1/2 inch, maybe above that add line, and you can see that's a pretty big add line for the operating range. So I'm probably going to add at least another 1/3 of the quart that I bought and try to get a little higher into that range. So if you buy a kit, just be mindful. It will get you into operating range, but you may want to think about getting you an extra quart so you can pour a little bit in there. I wouldn't want to push it too hard being on the very bottom of that scale. That's going to do it for my 100-hour service on this motor. I am going to be doing a water pump here in the next month or so. This is a 3-year-old motor, and it says you're supposed to do the water pump every 300 hours or 3 years.
I don't think it's a huge push to do it right this second. Everything's running good, so I'm not real worried about it, but I don't want to let it go till it gets to the point where it might break or fail on me and could risk overheating the motor. So within the next month or so, I'll be posting a video about doing the water pump change. And I might post a little quick video of changing out that propeller bore sleeve, which ought to be pretty easy. It's just a matter of taking the prop off again and hopefully snapping the new piece in. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, please go ahead and subscribe, because I'll be doing all kinds of little how-to videos on stuff like this here on the boat. Maybe on four-wheelers, on the truck that pulls the boat to the lake. I mean, that's part of the adventures, is getting there and make sure everything runs good. So that's it today for Halfway There Adventures. We'll see you on the next one. Peace. All right, one other thing, I was looking at the book. I didn't think I mentioned it all. Was one thing it says is to add some quick clean to the fuel tank. So I think is a fuel system cleaner. I got to do a little more research on that. I'll probably call the dealer and check with them, see if they recommend it, or if that's something you only do if you're having issues. If it needs to be done, I'm going to want to try to do it, but I'm not doing it right now at this time. And the other thing is, it says to inspect the thermostat, which you can see right here. This is the thermostat housing. Let me get a good angle at it. Right, yeah, right here's the thermostat housing on the back. It says to inspect it and check the spring, make sure there's no corrosion, but to do that, I feel like you'd have to replace that gasket. I don't think that gasket's going to be reusable. I don't have a new one with me, so that's another thing I'm going to check with them about. I know it was in the shop. They may have checked it when it was there, or you know, if it's something I should do, I might do it. I just don't want to break that seal and end up putting it back together and it leaking on me. So we might do that at a later date if it's recommended by my dealer. But for right now, I think we're good to go in terms of the thermostat and the quick clean. I'll post an update if I decide to go and do either one of those.